All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Joining me now is Richard P. Jackson, and we're going to be talking about the paranormal this hour here in the X Zone. His website is www.richardpjackson.com. And Richard, welcome back to the X Zone.
As ever, it's a pleasure, Rob.
Now, Richard, for those who may be joining us for the first time in one of our new affiliates worldwide, let our listeners know a little bit about yourself and what your connection to the paranormal is.
Well, I had moved into a house, it was actually 27 years ago, that had phenomenon that to this day I have not seen on three continents. And I worked with both the School of Parapsychology in California and the Ed and Lorraine Warren. And it turns out that I was a full-blown physical medium, and there my journey started. And along the way, I've learned lots of other things that are part of the whole shebang, so to speak, of the spiritual world. Many times people need healing, so that brought in lots of new things. I'm constantly at work bettering myself, working with companies about de-stressing and still dealing with hauntings and everything in between.
How do we know the paranormal is real and not some type of psychosomatic condition that people have?
Probably the strange thing, it's one of those dichotomies. We know it's real because science becomes something that we know we can prove through everything we know to be true through some kind of control or causal link. The only thing the paranormal is things that are yet to be entirely proven by science, so they're sitting in the middle somewhere. What was paranormal 100 years ago isn't anymore.
So what was it in your life that proved to you beyond a shadow of a doubt, Richard, that there are real hauntings, there is such a thing as ghostly manifestations and spirituality?
According to not only Ed Warren, but several people all around the world, I have taken pictures that are probably unlike many. I was part of the electronic voice phenomenon, and I could keep going on that, but that actually isn't the point. I wanted to kind of get people's attention in a way, because I have been thrown through windows, because I've had saints appear in front of me in the flesh, and I am not a Christian, and yet I am honored because they're my allies. It is so much a part of my daily life, and had been, that it would be like, the reality of, are we really alive? Yeah, of course we're alive. It's not even a question in my mind in any way or form.
Why you?
I asked the same question. I think a little bit is it a past life thing? Is it a karmic thing? These are all speculative, but I do know that people who were born extremely premature, who've had abuse in their childhoods, are often people who are very spiritual and very psychic. Maybe it was a coincidence that I ran into these things, but before I ever did, I ran into an addictive problem that almost killed me, and it was very spiritually involved. Some of the spirits were vicariously trying to get high through me, and had it not been for a couple friends, I would not be of this earth anymore.
Wow. So if people say to you, Richard, with a skeptical mind, come on, what are you talking about? What are you smoking? What do you want? Are you related to Toronto Mayor Rob Ford? How do you handle skepticism?
I don't get a lot, to be honest. Usually, if I'm even in a group, I think I mentioned to you a little before when we were off air that I became almost a household word, a name around Frederick, Maryland, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., because I did benefits after I had cleared a number of museums there. So I had a lot of military people, very skeptical people, very religious people, and they would come to my benefits. And one of them, who was a very famous doctor, he raised his hand, and I turned to him and asked him if this was about the little girl at the bottom of the stairs, and he almost fell over. So I usually, if I'm speaking to a group of people, I win them over immediately by just saying something to somebody that is beyond any chance of me knowing, without there being something beyond what's the normal range of the human condition.
Right, but these are usually believers that go to these events, people who want validation. But how about the John Q. public who really doesn't believe it?
Most people who ask me that, I say, well, listen and learn.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only been really once or twice where I was challenged publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And in one, I just turned to him, I said, I'll have something for you in a minute. And he sat there with a smirk, and about 5 minutes later, I said, do you want it in public? And I told him about the affair he was having, and he turned red and ran out of the room.
All right, Richard, stand by. We've got to take our first commercial break. Exo Nation, Richard P. Jackson is our guest this hour, www.richardpjackson.com. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, with yours truly, Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go away. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com.
These guys are the best!
Well, it's not my thing, but I'm sure youngsters everywhere will be delighted.
Welcome back. This is the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Our website is www.xzoneradiotv.com, and you can listen to the archives at xzonepodcast.com. They're available on iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, and many other internet download areas, and of course on the Sirius satellite network as well. Our guest this hour is Richard P. Jackson, and Richard, you've got something happening, I believe, in Connecticut that you're calling the New Paranormal.
Yeah, I started a little class as a way to kick off my year, which I seem to go with the first day of spring as my new year. And what it's talking about are even the things in this past year that has come up that is now looking like it's not just a figment of someone's theory or thought, but that some very real things are emerging into our world, that some of them sit on the paranormal crest, some of them are already being proven by science. The first of which is probably the idea of, can thought, can our thinking or our prayers influence physical objects, both directly and with any interceding from the spirit world?
Has this been investigated by Duke University at their paranormal or parapsychology lab when they did an extensive study on ESP and telekinesis?
Yes, and also by UCLA had a great school with the wonderful Thelma Moss, who was the first person to tell me, Richard, I'm not a psychic, but stay in this field. You're meant to be a name in this field. And I listened to her. Mm-hmm. She had made one of her cases, by the way, became two kind of, I don't want to call them grade B movies because they're movies I've seen, but they were based on real cases. One of them was The Entity with Barbara Hershey, and the other one was, I think it's called The Black Hope Horror in Texas. And it was a development built over a site where slaves were thrown into a grave, a mass grave. And the amount of cancer that happened in this area that showed itself to be a classic haunted area was phenomenal. It was almost 800% higher than normal.
Could it be coincidence?
No. There's sometimes not when you have about 1,200 homes and you have that kind of figure.
But was there any other toxicity in the area, or was it strictly because of the belief that these 800 slaves who were tossed into a common grave were the cause of it? And if so, what was the proof?
The proof was really the fact that lots of people were getting, your standard orbs and pictures, and this is before the internet, so a lot of people didn't know what to do with this.
But haven't orbs been debunked as dust particles, moisture in the air?
I have taken pictures and gotten snowflakes, rain, and dust particles as orbs. But I have also taken pictures inside and have gotten entire total faces and beings that leave nothing to the imagination. So the orbs can be either. It's usually some kind of energy. So yes, it can be dust or a drop of water, but it could also be some energetic form of a discarnate spirit. They'll both appear as orbs. But when you start getting faces or people with a hat and clothes from 100 years ago, or entities 500 feet tall with wings and horns, now you got something different.
Entities 500 feet tall? Isn't that a little bit steep?
Yeah. No, actually, I have one of those pictures, and I've shown them, not on the Internet. I don't want to spread, because I don't think this is a good entity. I don't like the idea of spreading evil, having more people wanting to see that kind of a thing and get pictures, because I'm watching a lot of kids get hurt playing with this stuff, hobbyish-wise. But I do have a few pictures on the Internet. I am about to probably put up another 15 or 20 that are mixed, both good spirits and bad spirits and energies. And
let me ask you this. Taking two identical cameras to the camera that you use, focusing on them at the exact same spot, would both cameras come up with the same pictures? One,
No.
both having the so-called entities or orbs or whatever?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because the variable might be that one person on one camera is simply a different person than another.
Well, let's say that we put the cameras on tripods.
Okay.
Untouched by anyone.
Okay.
Okay? Would the cameras at this point still have the same photographic effect? Would both cameras have the same picture? Would there be orbs only in one and not the other? And if so, why?
I usually would. I would say that most usually they will both get something, and they may not be exactly the same because
Gotcha.
they're taking it from a different space and time. But yes, they would. If everything else was even, they would all get the pictures that were relatively similar. Yes.
You were saying that you've actually taken pictures of people in, older day dress, you were saying?
Yeah, where it looks like, gee, what's that? What's that Confederate hat on his head?
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Has anybody ever taken a picture of a caveman or a dinosaur?
I have pictures that look just like I guess you would say, if you wanted to make an abstract of the spirit of a dinosaur, do some of mine look like that? They look exactly like that, and I think you hit upon something that I have a theory about, and I don't think you're far from the truth.
Yeah, because I've gone on a lot of these so-called ghost hunts, ghost tours, or whatever. I give them no credibility. I'll be very honest with you, because I've never seen anything. I've never heard anything. In fact, there's a tour of Fort George in Niagara-on-the-Lake that I went to. Unbeknownst to the tour guide, I did a lot of research prior. And, he's taking us through the parade ground, and he said the ghosts are seen here and little girls are heard here, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the tour, I said, well, how come you didn't tell anybody here that this fort was rebuilt 500 feet away from where the original fort was?
You hit it. In a way, you answered your own question, and I agree with you. I started out, for example, I mentioned Gettysburg. I think I'd mentioned it before, Frederick, Maryland. And this was about 14 years ago, where a military couple who had called me for other reasons wound up, I'm friends to them to this day, but the woman of the family wound up going to Frederick from Fort Benning and working with her mom, who started running the National Civil War Museum for Medicine. And strange things kept happening there. Bizarre isn't the word. So they called me in with their little budget to please come and help. When I did that, through a series of events, the museum got cleared. I had become a name in that area, and I started getting, kind of passed on to Gettysburg, where they had one ghost tour at the time. They now have about 21. I know the people who do the ghost tours are self-proclaimed tour guides. They know very little, if nothing, about the paranormal. They make stuff up. It's all about souvenirs. But that doesn't discredit the real stuff that does happen in Gettysburg, like the Devil's Den, where Ted Turner and anyone else in an area about, I don't know, it's maybe 100 square yards, cannot take a picture with any camera and never will. It just won't happen. There's also an area near Pickett's Charge, about 100 feet long, that on the anniversary of that charge every year, the most skeptical person could sit down and they will start feeling hands and feet crawling all over them. There's so much fake stuff out there, Rob, that I almost...
But
it's funny. It's a war with me because I don't want to sometimes be called a Ghostbuster because it's just become this nonsensical madness.
But
of
how
most
come,
people.
Richard? Like you just said that the Devil's Den is about 100 square feet, 100 square yards. That's 300 square feet where nobody can take photos, and yet you go to the internet and it's full of photos of the Devil's Den. So how do you justify this?
Well, there's one area where you just won't get a normal picture. It just won't come out. And then all around the Devil's Den, there's a lot of psychic activity. But as somebody, because I would always, as a scientist by education, I would always take the control end, the negative, seeing things from both ends. How much are things that people even do take pictures of that aren't thought forms, that they're not projecting themselves? And then, you go further with it and realize, well, that's exactly what a ghost is. A ghost is something we don't know what it is. There's no reason for it to appear in a photo or anywhere else, but it does. It's an anomaly. That's different than the apparition of a person who you know it is, or an animal that you know existed is no longer there, and yet they appear in a picture or make a noise or on a tape recorder.
But
the whole
wouldn't you
idea
agree?
Of what a ghost is.
But,
I'm sorry, Rip.
You look at a lot of these pictures, and it seems that it's open to perception, the perception of the person looking at the picture. I've seen pictures that I don't see a darn thing, and yet you've got these wannabe ghost enthusiasts who see everything from Mother Teresa down to UFOs. So where do you draw the line between fantasy, reality?
I have about, I don't know how many thousands of pictures that I would say, there's probably 4,000 or 5,000, many of whom I've thrown out, that had something in them. I've taken about 3,700 and literally tossed them over my shoulder. But the other 250, 2/3 of them leave nothing to the imagination. Some of them I have flipped the film to reporters, or they've taken my camera, taken the film out, and have had it developed, and they call me going, "Boy, you just shook my world up."
Now, does that also work with the new digital formats, or are you finding that with the new digital formats that have a higher pixel ratio than any 35 millimeter with film ever had, that there's less and less of these phenomena happening?
Actually, there's more and more.
Really?
They're much too. That's why they're picking up dust and things like that. They're much too accurate. They'll pick up anything and show it. Mm-hmm. And the digital stuff is. I've never used digital. I use the instant boob cameras, or the cameras they sell with the film in it, like the throwaway cameras. And oftentimes, I've used others.
Sure.
But oftentimes, if I'm near something and people take a picture, the picture will come out because it's a physical medium. That's probably why I get so many, and why other people get pictures more likely if I'm present.
Stand by, Richard. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, the paranormal. Are you a believer or a skeptic? Send an email, exon@exonradiotv.com. Strange world we live in. We have the crisis going on in the Ukraine. We have, I call it a political game of chess between President Obama and President Putin. Joining me later on tonight, Howard Bloom will be joining us. Get his take on what's going on in the world today. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Sirius satellite network.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled LITE.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Now you can dial in to listen to the X-Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7. 365.
It's a whole new way of life.
Well, let's hear it.
Welcome back to the X-Zone. Coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll free 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger and all other social media, X-Zone Radio TV. and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Richard P. Jackson is our guest this hour, www.richardpjackson.com. Richard, in your opinion, as a paranormal investigator, what in the last 10 years have been the giant steps that have been accepted within the paranormal research organizations as milestones?
I think, from what I know, because I really more or less walk my own path, and I don't do things scientifically in this area because a lot of it is by suggestion. A lot of it are things that, because an area is haunted, doesn't necessarily mean things are going to appear, or they won't appear all the time to all people. But I do know that one of the things that has been a biggie is not so much in the ghost area, although that's included. It is, for example, the way that thought exerts its influence on the physical world, as well as the one thing that just came to mind during we had a little break there is this 21 grams that seems to be missing whenever someone passes away, no matter how big they are, allowing for body fluids. 21 grams is missing. And I believe it was at either MIT or Harvard Medical School. Some of the people there started filming when people were passing, so it had to be in one of the hospitals there in Boston. They started picturing or seeing some energy just float away when a person passed. It was something distinct and separate now from the body. That it rose. I believe some pictures were taken. I believe that it was credibly, by the most skeptical people, that something's going on here beyond our knowledge. And I know a lot of stuff was going there. One of the few times I actually went, because I don't attend these workshops. When I see a show on haunting, to be honest, I shut it off.
Really?
I've been in 3 or 4. I don't watch them. Yeah, I don't allow that in my house. It's either going to encourage things happening, or I'm watching things that are making a farce out of it, even though the people are well-intentioned and sometimes it's real. I don't believe everything in this world should be played with as if it was, something that's open game all the time, because even if it's just the power of suggestion, I've had 7 funerals as a minister and as an investigator, both in some cases, where I have had kids who were suicides in the last 3 or 4 years, and the common link with all of them was they were obsessed with the paranormal at age 16, 17, 18, 19, and they all got in trouble, and they all had some kind of a diagnosis of schizophrenia or post-traumatic stress, and 7 of these kids were suicides, and 2 of them were a double suicide that broke my heart.
You said that you were a minister.
Yes.
How does that fit into your work as a paranormal researcher, and where did you get your degree from?
My ministry is from I believe it's an Episcopal church in New York that is an order that is worldwide, is called the Order of Melchizedek. And as a Jew, because I am Jewish, as a Levite, and as somebody over 13, I have every right to consider and be a minister of faith. So I work very interfaith. I had the very, very famous Bishop McConnell, who is one of my most favorite people in the world. He's a traditional Catholic bishop, and he has given me his sanction and rights to act as his proxy.
All right, but did you go to a seminary? Did you take the required courses, or was this an internet?
No. It wasn't internet. No, okay. It was actually a set of about 6 weekends of going and being picked and asked by other ministers and given that honor that they would like me to join and be part of their order.
So what authority does this give you as a demonologist or as an exorcist?
I believe just the fact that I care enough to or that people place something in me, a trust.
Right.
I believe there's something to that. I think there's a reason that Catholic priests, for example, come under attack very harshly and very hard, because it goes both ways. If you can get a priest to look bad, because they do have some clout, because they, from let's say, whether it's the Catholic Church or any religion, all the people who've dedicated their lives and came before them bring something to the table. And this is every religion. If people are truly sincere, there's something that gets passed along in honorarium for all the sacrifices and all the time people have spent on their knees praying for their fellow man. I believe some of those prayers probably keeps the world going, so to speak.
You mentioned briefly these television shows, the haunting shows, and so on and so forth. I think they're a bunch of bunk, personally. I wouldn't waste my time watching them. As a person who does this for a living, how do you, how far off are they?
They're usually have some type of connection with reality.
Mm-hmm.
That something is going on, or people think something is going on, but it's usually never explained where this really came from, why it's happening, and how to stop it and get rid of it. And as you know, because we have a history, even over the phone, I have both helped people, who've lost people. In fact, I accidentally stumbled on a letter from somebody, I don't want to say their name for confidentiality, but it's somebody you knew from way back when who lost their mom and called me, and it was a letter thanking me because my psychic ability to come up with things I could not know about brought her great comfort in losing her mom. Okay? And the whole idea is I'm totally result-orientated. If something is happening in a family and there is phenomenon, or I know there's something, an undercurrent, and somebody could finally stop their addictions and the marriage gets better and the father who had asthma seems to almost not need his medicine anymore, I've done my job.
Tell me
wherever it came from. You know what I mean?
All right, the movie The Exorcist. What's your opinion on that?
Obviously it was Hollywood, but I have been in some situations where that wouldn't seem that far off. Thankfully, not many of them. It was based on a true story. It was also glamorized. But it was a very real story, and some very real people got very hurt.
And the Amityville Horror movie?
My feeling is the movie is one thing. The fact that it was a haunted spot, that was a place where Native Americans were buried, but it was Native Americans who were not right in their heads. They didn't want them buried with their normal people. And I have no doubt that something went on there spiritually. I also have no doubt there's a lot of kind of twisted stuff there that God knows where it came from. But I do know that somebody got in and killed his entire family, and he was exorcised by the Catholic Church in prison in a sanctified priest who had a legit exorcism in prison. Now, that to me doesn't make it real, but it lends itself to the fact that I have no doubt something went on there. And I'm very close to some of the people involved, some of who have passed on. I only know by their inference, and this happens to be Ed Warren, that something was going on there.
We were talking earlier about the power of the mind, ESP, telekinesis, and is it possible that a lot of these hauntings, a lot of these demonic possessions or demon appearances could actually be triggered by somebody's mind, and it has nothing to do with good, evil, haunting, ghosts, Casper, whatever?
Most of the ones I've heard about that I see on TV, et cetera, I agree with that 100%. Is there some that might appear similar but come from a very different place of being very real? I also know that is absolutely true, yes.
So how would a person who believes, because there's strange things happening that they can't understand, that instead of looking at the rationality of the situation, jumps the gun, calls a paranormal investigator, Lord knows the largest septic tank in the world called the Internet has enough of them listed, that these people actually know what they're talking about.
Because for the same reason that I'm watching people go to church in a stadium to a man who makes tens of millions of dollars a year and preaches Jesus' word.
Right.
I just don't buy it. I've always been a fringe person, so I don't have to dance to anyone's tune. I know that I help people. I know that most of what goes out there gets so over-exaggerated, overwhelmingly played with and tampered with, that I have to walk away from that and only deal with the things that I know in my heart these are either real or I'm called upon to at least see and check it out for myself and see if I can make a difference. For the better part of most of those cases, for example, the orbs and things that go bump in the night, a lot of times they're real, but you know what they are, Rob? They're raccoons. They're animals in spirit who don't know they're dead yet. They're pets. And I've been able to work a lot with animals and horses. I've been known as a horse communicator. And I've quieted whole barns down, and the only thing wrong with the barn was there was a family of raccoons that were killed that were still spiritually active. Somehow their energies were simply there, and when I asked that they be removed, the horses quieted down.
Right.
To me, it's not what other people call paranormal is part of my normal world. So there's always a question of boundaries. What my boundary is very different than what you see on TV and to most people.
Why is it that so many people who have the occurrences that later on turn out to be, like you said, the raccoons in the barn, want so much to be part of something that is paranormal? This boggles my mind.
Oh, I can give you an easy answer. And I'll give you an answer. I'm going to be cocky for just a second, and I'm doing it for the effect of giving you the reason, okay?
Yeah.
I want this reason, even if it's not true all of the time for all of the people. I want to know that I'm saying this as I don't say many things because I've just begun to write, and I'm very, very protective of my intellectual property. But I'm going to share this one because I'm speaking to Rob McConnell, okay? It's called addiction. We have a society that is so crazed with endorphins that whether it's sports events, what sports person needs $150 million a year?
Nobody I know.
Kicking a ball.
Nobody
right.
I know.
And we are so over the top. The B movies are bloodier than ever. The video games, over the top.
Oh.
If somebody could say, I'm a psychic investigator, they get a rush for the same reason that they will when they see a Grand Slam home run or they have $1,000 on the table on a poker table. They're addicted to the opiates in their own body. They're junkies, and we have a society of junkies.
That is sad. That is truly sad. And, you know, you laugh.
You know it's true, though.
I do, after doing this show for 22 years. I've got to tell you that when I started, I was a believer. After the first 3 or 4 years, I was a little skeptical. Now it's like, you've got to be kidding. You know, when I first started, everything had to do with the aliens, and then it was the angels, and then it's the New Age, and then it's this, and then there's no consistency.
No, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, I've done that many times.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because, like, do I know anybody in America that I would recommend outside of Ed, who has passed, or Bishop McKenna? No, I don't know. If I couldn't go to a case and somebody says, well, do you know anybody who can? No, I don't know anyone.
Yeah.
I don't want to risk my name or reputation, and I don't want to stick my neck out. I'd say, I don't know. Call your local minister or priest. Good luck. Thank you. Have a nice day. Let
me ask you this. We've got about a minute and a half before I have to take my final break with you, my good friend. Why is it that there's still this epic fight between good and evil going on, and why are the forces using humans?
The answer at first, goodwill, free will, and the whole idea of good and evil is we live in a world that works two ways. One is we are a dual universe, up, down, black, white, plus, minus.
I call it a digital.
The other is. And it's like 1 and O's on the computer.
Exactly.
And the other, if we have time after the break, I'm not able to finish. is the fact that we really live in what's called a three-decker universe. Everything is three levels: heaven, hell, earth. Mother, father, child, height, width, length.
Mole, Lowry,
start
Curly.
Thinking in those terms. Yeah, Mo, Larry, and Curly.
There you go.
And we really do live in a three-decker universe.
Stand by, good friend. You and I have to take our final break. X-Zone Nation, the one and only Richard P. Jackson is our special guest. www.richardpjackson.com. And Richard and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone. Still to come on tonight's show, Howard Bloom and I will be discussing the events happening in the Ukraine. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. You're listening to us on the Sirius Satellite Network.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
Understand this concept and become a better human being because of it.
Who cares?
Richard P. Jackson is our guest, www.richardpjackson.com. And to answer the question of who cares, you care, the members of the worldwide X-Zone Nation. And I've got to tell you something, we are breaking records right around the world. Our numbers for Canada, the United States, way up. Brazil, way up. Spain, Germany, Russia, Norway, Sweden, the United Kingdom, Africa, India, Pakistan. Where, Craig? Japan and Australia. Like you, the X-Zone Nation, are the best. And, of course, you're listening to us on the Sirius Satellite Network. Richard P. Jackson, my good friend, I love having you on. You can take as many hard questions as I can pitch, and the reason I do this is I want our listeners to know that you, my friend, are the real McCoy.
It's really appreciated, Rob. Thank you.
You like you said before, you and I go back a long time. We do. My respect for you has always been there, and when you look at the paranormal, when you look at the TV shows, when you look at the books that are out there, when you look at all the crap and corruption that you can find on the internet, what do you say to people, Richard? You know, you've been there. You've seen you've been in the face of evil. You've been at its beck and threats. You've been tossed around a room. Why do they do this? Why is there this continuing fight? You know, I thought that heaven and hell had taken care of this mess many years ago.
I one of the things is people like to feel alive. Sometimes when there's something that you either try to master or that you realize you'll never master, kind of like being on a boat. You take a boat about 10 miles out on a big lake or the ocean, and all of a sudden you get a perspective on how small and fragile you really are and how you've been given this gift in this massive universe and this amazing world. And in the same way, when people touch into the paranormal, on the good end, it lets them know there's so much yet we don't know. There's things that happen that who knows where, what, and why. But on a bad end, people feel they have some power, that they can do something or walk in and feel like they can tell a ghost to get the heck out of here, or that people turn to them for help. And, again, it's part of almost that desire to be needed and wanted, and also the endorphin, the old addiction.
It also sounds, Richard, like these people have one heck of an ego.
Oftentimes, yeah, and I don't mix well with most people in this world that do that work, but I mix well with people who are very, very well-known and set in what they do, whether they be scientists, doctors, or writers, that they don't have to prove themselves to me. We simply exchange. I get along fantastic. Whether they're skeptics or not doesn't matter. We always get along.
Richard, we're running out of time very fast, and where can people get more information about your new paranormal events?
Okay, you could go to my site. It's richardpjackson.com. I accept any and all emails, and we'll answer them. It's rich22jack@yahoo.com. And on my events coming up soon, month by month, there's going to be lots more I'm going to be doing with very large programs on developing ability, on public speaking, all kinds of stuff. And I am going to have a newsletter starting in July, and I will always be a visitor on the X-Zone Nation if you'll have me.
You're more than welcome to here anytime, my good friend. Richard, to you and yours, the very best. Great talking to you. I look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X-Zone.
And not too far from now, I hope, Rob. Take care, my friend.
Take care, buddy. X-Zone Nation, Richard P. Jackson has been my very special guest this hour. www.richardpjackson.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. Howard Bloom and I will be talking about the crisis in Ukraine later on tonight. Stand by as we come to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.